It's a question that every artist asks at some point. What is art? Of course, we can name line, form, shadow, light, subject matter. All of those things are objective, observable elements of a piece of art. But what takes something from being just a pretty picture into that realm of art? I believe that it has to do with emotion. That when you're looking at that image, it inspires something. It catches not just your eye, but it catches your heart in some way. And it makes some sort of imprint and brings up some sort of feeling. And we can put a lot of emphasis on honing our craft and getting better at those fundamentals that I mentioned just a moment ago. But we do ourselves a disservice if we don't, along with developing those observable skills, if we don't also cultivate more emotional fluency, if we don't expand our vocabulary and get comfortable with talking about how different images make us feel and how we feel when we're taking certain images. Now, I started thinking about this in a slightly different context, and it's been on my mind for a while. And where it really showed up for me was when I was thinking about social media. Now, if you look under the hood of any social media platform and you go behind the scenes, you can find your insights or your statistics. And they'll call it engagement, but I really think of it more as interaction because it's measuring using numbers, how many likes, shares, reposts, comments, etc. And those are interactions, but are they really engagement? Did someone really engage with your content? And I feel like we're missing an opportunity when we just stay on that surface of looking at the numbers or valuing those numbers, and we don't step back and think about how can I leverage this really powerful platform to get more meaningful engagement? And how can I give more meaningful feedback and comments to people and therefore maybe start to receive some of those more meaningful pieces of feedback? I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen the original Inside Out, and now Inside Out 2 is in theaters. I'm hoping maybe to go see it today. But if you're familiar with the story, you know that it's a young girl named Riley who in the original Inside Out was a happy child in the Midwest. And she experienced what was probably the biggest upheaval in her life to that point when her father got a job in California. And so they took the family and moved from the Midwest out to California. And we're introduced to this wide cast of emotional characters. They give us this very colorful and imaginative tour of what's going on inside of Riley's head. And in Inside Out 2, we get that same similar tour with Riley the teenager. And we're introduced to some new emotions like envy and ennui and anxiety. I love it when something that is so complicated like emotions breaks into the mainstream in a very accessible way and gets us having a conversation. And I credit the popularity of these kinds of movies and even television shows to our need to really dive into and understand our emotional landscape. What they're telling us is that being able to relate to, name, trace the origins of our emotions is part of being a healthy human being. And like I said in the beginning, if art is elevated by having spurred an emotional reaction, then that makes the case for us really spending time and being intentional about being in touch with what are the emotions that I'm experiencing when I look at this image, when I consider it, when I sit with it for a while. It's part of being a healthy human being. It's part of being a healthy and thriving and successful artist. But when we put our emphasis, especially in social media, on the numbers, then we're just playing a numbers game. and we're stressing quantity over quality. What I'm proposing is that we flip that, and as the cliche goes, stress quality over quantity. And there's a very simple way that we can do that, that I'm going to put forth as a challenge to you, as well as to myself, over the next week at least, just to try it on for size if you're not already doing it. I want to challenge all of us to stretch our emotional vocabulary. And if the talking about our vocabulary around our creativity sounds familiar, it's because I spoke about it in an earlier video when I was sharing about my experience going to the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit at the Art Institute of Chicago. So, please check that out if you want to hear a little bit more about this. But here I want to take that concept of our emotional and our creative vocabulary and talk about how we can apply it very concretely. And it will help us, I think, move from social media being more transactional to being more relational. As I share this, I want to stress that there's nothing wrong with the way that we typically use social media when we like and share and just leave a few emoji in the comment thread for an image, or just say this is really wonderful or I love this. Please keep doing that. I will keep doing it. All of that is part of the feedback loop. And what I'm challenging us to do is to take that feedback loop and leverage it in a more meaningful way. In a way that will help us to develop by just slowing the scroll by maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and doing ourselves a favor as well as the artist a favor by sharing just a little bit more about why do we love it? What about it do we think is wonderful? What was it that caught our eye or caught our heart as we were scrolling through, an endless feed? I know one of the questions I'm frequently asking myself is, what makes my work unique? What makes it different than another photographer who takes photos of architecture or flowers or landscapes or small scenes? Providing this kind of feedback is part of how I will start to realize what other people are seeing, what kind of imprint my images are making on other people. So let's make this challenge really simple. For the next week, whenever you're scrolling, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or some other platform where you're looking at images and able to comment, if something catches your eye and stirs some response in you, stop, go ahead, like the image, click the heart emoji, and then leave a comment and share, what is it about that image that caught you? Was it the line, the color, the light, the subject matter? Was it something that stirred an emotion? Did you feel peace, energy, excitement, confusion, mystery, nostalgia from looking at that image? Take a moment to just say, wow, I really love this image because it makes me feel, and then fill in the blank with your feeling or emotion. I really appreciate in this image the way you highlighted the lines, the light, the shadow. I really love how you have captured the subject's whatever, its essence, its color, its uniqueness. You get the idea. We can say, wow, I really love this, or I really like what you did with this. And that, just doing that gives that photographer, gives that artist a little bit more of a jolt than we get from just the emoji and the sort of 1 or 2 word pieces of feedback. And it gives you something because you start to notice what you're drawn to. You start to develop your own vocabulary. You start to notice what kinds of things catch your eye and stir an emotion in you. And that tells you something about who you are as an artist. So the gift goes both ways. Because this kind of emotional language tends to come fairly naturally to me, I've just now become aware that not everybody has that kind of vocabulary, or it doesn't come as naturally to some people. And so you might be listening to this and thinking, oh, that's pretty easy, or I do that already. Or you might be thinking, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, or I'm not sure where I would start. I think it's always helpful to have some sort of prompts or references that we can use. And so I'm sharing here a feelings wheel that gives you an idea of some more nuanced feelings that go along with some of the initial ones that we might be able to name, like happy or sad or angry. It starts to break it off because, for instance, I hope you're not angry when you're looking at an image, but that's an easy one to talk about. Your first reaction might be, this makes me angry. And then it might be, well, if I really think about it, I'm frustrated. I'm feeling blocked. And then you might go one layer deeper and say, something, I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed that this didn't work out. I'm disappointed that this person didn't fulfill my expectations. I'm disappointed I didn't fulfill my own expectations. And so is it really anger or is it disappointment? The more nuanced we're able to get with our language, the richer the story we can tell about what we were experiencing when we took a photo, or what we hope perhaps the viewer experiences when they look at it. Since it's not always easy to put your finger on a sensation that you might be experiencing, I think things like this feelings wheel are very helpful. And I'll leave a link in the description where you can take a look at this wheel on your own. And of course, just plug in feelings list or wheel into Google, and you're likely to find charts and wheels and lists and other things that you can use. And if you find this kind of thing doesn't come naturally, print it out, have it handy, start practicing using it. It's a muscle that you just have to keep stretching and working, and eventually it will become easier. This kind of emotional fluency is extremely helpful when talking about our art. It helps us to express more fully and can even inform the story that goes along with an image. And this is especially true if you're like me and you do a lot of abstraction. We can't lean on the subject matter necessarily to tell the story for us. And so it's really about the emotion that we are stirring up in someone, and being able to identify that makes it enhances our communication, our visual communication, when we're able to communicate that, and we have that intention as we are processing that image and sharing that image. I invite you to try this strategy for the next week of commenting in a meaningful way, and notice what happens. Do you notice any trends in the kinds of images that you're responding to? Do you find yourself using similar words over and over again? Because that's mirroring what you are continuing to be attracted to. What does what you're drawn to tell you about your own work and your own vision? If you receive comments like this, what does it tell you about who you are as an artist and what your particular perspective is? You've probably had the experience that I have, which is you had a particular mindset and emotion and context when you were taking an image, and you process it and you try to reflect that, and then you put it out there, and people have their own reaction. And some people might mirror what it was that you were experiencing, and other times they're going to come back with something that's very different. And so the value of being able to articulate what it is that you're experiencing with someone's image is that you're expanding your own vocabulary, but you're also inviting the artist to expand the way that they are seeing their image. It doesn't necessarily change their experience of that image, but it reminds us that there are a multitude of interpretations for something, and to not limit ourselves to a single story when we're thinking about our images. So getting that kind of feedback helps us to expand the narrative of what our images are communicating. Also notice as you do this, did it become easier over time to make these kinds of comments? Did the words come a little bit more quickly? Did you take less time in doing it? Um, how did practicing this change your relationship with social media? Did it become a little bit more enjoyable because you were having more meaningful engagement with different images? Um, did it change how you felt about being on that platform? And what did you learn overall? In addition to being an artist, I'm a coach, and coaches are all about curiosity and questions. And we're about awareness. We're about like taking something that you might be conscious of on a very surface level and going one step deeper and saying, so what? So what? Or so that. So you like this image. So what? So what about it? What about it is wonderful? And then what about that is wonderful? So to keep, to use the cliche, peeling back the layers of the onion until we get to the heart of something. And that kind of awareness is what really catapults us into creating art that is more satisfying, ultimately to us, but also to the people that are enjoying our art. I hope you can see that by slowing down and reflecting on what you're seeing, you're giving yourself the gift of that deeper awareness of your personal aesthetic and your preferences, as well as giving someone else the gift of meaningful feedback. I hope you'll give this challenge a try, and please share your experience in the comments. And if you have a different way of engaging on social media and offering feedback to your fellow artists, please share what your experience is. There's something for all of us to learn. And of course, if you enjoy this content and you find it valuable, I hope that you'll like and share and subscribe to this channel to get more of it. And please do share it with others who you think might find it valuable. As always, I am extremely grateful to naturephotographyclasses.com and their Inspired Creator Grant. That is part of what makes this channel possible. And you can learn more and submit your own application at naturephotographyclasses.com/inspired-creator. And that link is down in the show description. I'm so grateful that you spent this time with me today. I really do hope that you'll join me in this challenge for at least the next week, leaving these more meaningful comments that reflect the emotion or the feeling. What grabbed your mind, what grabbed your eye, what grabbed your heart when you're looking at other people's images. And I look forward to seeing you next time.